I am Sarah Parker, 48 years old. I am still working hard at my age. My husband Ken is an unsuccessful novelist for years younger than me. I had taken care of all the work, childcare, and housework, but Ken had a mistress. I had heard that mature divorces were becoming more and more common, but I never imagined that my own father and mother would be divorcing at this age. After 22 years of marriage, right? I'm surprised that there is someone other than my mother who can support my father, who is so taciturn and nervous. And that mistress? She's only 6 years older than me. But how much more worthless can my father be, let alone my grandma? I can't believe he's trying to live with grandma and his mistress in this house Mom bought. It's not that he's brazen, but as a son, he's pathetic. It's really reassuring to know that my son Harry is on my side. Have you moved in yet? My new daughter-in-law and a baby are coming tomorrow. My mother-in-law has arrived. She is totally planning to stay in this house. But I had a head start. I'll be gone in 3 hours. Why do I have to wait 3 hours when all you have to do is bring your personal belongings? Mom, what's going on? Harry whispered quietly. Mom, you're going straight to the airport to catch a flight, right? Well, kind of. Then the moving company arrived, and my belongings were taken away. Well then, take care, Harry. It's your first time living alone and working, but do your best in moderation. And also, I left a message for Ken and Nancy with Harry and left the house. Then I took a taxi to the airport for my overseas transfer. 3 hours later, when my husband peeked into the house, he saw a scene he hadn't anticipated at all. What? What's going on here? What I do with my house is my business. Don't assume I'll always be the yes man. I thought back on the history between me, Ken, and myself. Ouch. Sorry. A male student who bumped into me fell on his buttocks with such force that the contents of his bag were scattered. I gathered up the contents of the bag with the student. All that paper, are you writing a novel? Yeah, well. Oh no, I'm going to be late. I rushed to the station. When I slipped into the train, it was surprisingly empty and I was able to sit down. Oh no, I still had some of that guy's manuscript in my hand. The next day, I looked for the male student from yesterday and quickly found him. Ken Parker. Can I read the rest of this novel? I was reading it on the train yesterday and got so absorbed in it that I was almost late for my interview. You are very talented. If you have any more novels you're writing, I'd love to read them. I have become a fan of Ken Parker. I guess I'm fan club member number 1. Ken was frightened throughout the interview, but he looked embarrassed because I praised his novels so much. He still has a childlike face and a young age. And yet, the novels written by Ken express the ugliness and cruelty of human beings in a disgusting way. Ken quit college on his own accord when he was in his sophomore year of college. With her individuality and unique worldview, Ken did not seem to fit in at school. Because, when I came to college, there was no you. I had graduated from college, was assigned to the secretarial office of a major company, and was busy. You could see me if you wanted to. I'm off on weekends. I had no choice but to ask him out. Ken would never ask me out even if I waited forever. Ken, I think I'm pregnant. Really? You really don't react well, Ken. You don't show any emotion at all. Because if we were doing what we were doing, of course we would have a baby. Just don't forget to clear the hurdle. I was 26 and Ken was 22. Pregnant. Aren't you ashamed? You are a 4th-year working professional at a prestigious company, aren't you? Seducing Ken, who is younger than you, and getting pregnant before marriage is shameful. I don't approve of you giving birth. First of all, Ken is only 22 years old. Besides, Ken has always had no interest in people. Even if a child is born, he won't help raising it and he won't love it either. Although he is not well known yet, Ken will become famous someday when his novel becomes a hit. In order for that to happen, Ken needs an environment where he can concentrate on his novels. He won't work, won't do housework, and won't raise a child. Are you ready for that? My mother-in-law, Nancy, was like a machine gun. Of course I am ready. I will do the work and I don't expect him to help me with the housework and childcare. I am the same as you, mother-in-law. I want him to concentrate only on writing. We will also buy a house. I will prepare a quiet room for her to write in, and I also plan to build a library for him who loves books. You mean you are going to buy a house with your own money? Aren't you going to ask for help from your parents' family? For years after graduating from college, I don't think you have that much money saved up. I have $100,000 ready as a down payment. I'll cover all monthly mortgage payments. I've arranged to pay it off by the age of 46. Seems all set. Nancy reluctantly agreed to marriage. But no wedding or reception. Tea after an all-nighter hits the spot. Not your usual coffee, huh, Ken? So, why are you so frantic, Sarah? I told you, I'm going back to work today. Harry starts daycare today too. What about my lunch? It's all prepared. In the fridge, just microwave it. I don't know how to use the microwave. Come on, Harry. Let's go. You have a lot of friends. Don't ignore me, Sarah. All right, Ken, I'm off. See you later. I ignored a disgruntled Ken and hurried out of the house. After taking a 1-year childcare leave, I returned to work today. My ability to speak French was highly valued, and I was assigned to be the first secretary in the president's office among the elite secretarial department. Overseas business trip? No, you can't do that. I can't live on my own, you know. Then, would you like to ask your mother to come? Wouldn't she take care of you? Well, it's better than calling a babysitter I don't know, like the last time. She didn't talk to me for a long time. That day, Harry had a fever from the morning and I couldn't leave him at the daycare center, so I asked for a babysitter on short notice. I told her not to talk to you since you'd be in the writing room all day. There is a mini fridge in the room and a bathroom in front of the room, so I thought maybe she wouldn't cross paths with you. But that's a poor excuse. Well, I understand. I'm okay with my mother. A few days passed, and then my mother-in-law came to our house. It seems that she is happy to do something for Ken. In return, she is not at all fond of Harry. I couldn't go on an overseas business trip without a care in the world, and I was worried about Harry from beginning to end. Harry! No! My mother-in-law, Nancy's fury flew again today. How many times do I have to tell you? Your father is working in the back. Don't jump up and down, and don't make any noise. And don't sing too loud. He's working very hard, don't interrupt him. Nancy, who has been staying with us for some time now, warns Harry, now 6 years old, every day like this. A naughty 6-year-old is a sign of good health. I always worry that Harry will atrophy. However, instead of shrinking, Harry has the guts to talk back to her in a dignified manner. Why doesn't my father go to work? Why does he stay home every day? What does he do at home? The fathers at other houses say they eat dinner together. I'd like to go to a family restaurant or a diner, too. Harry is really cheeky. You took after that from your mother. What kind of education does it take to make you say something like this? Nancy's sermon, or rather, complete badmouthing, was about to begin again. I gave him an older wife of roughly 4 years, but she can't even train her children well. All he does is interfere with Ken. If you don't teach her that a father is a dignified man, he will be violent toward his parents in the future. Oh, I'm scared. He's a pre-criminal. You even seduced Ken to get him, but you put your child before Ken. Once you got him, weren't you satisfied with that? I feel sorry for Ken who was tricked into marriage. You are always talking about work, work, work. Do you understand that I am the one who has to clean up the mess in the end? You said you would do all the housework and childcare, but you still can't do it. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been there. I was listening from right to left. It is true that I sometimes rely on Nancy when it comes to Harry. But Nancy had only Ken on his mind. When is Dad going to be successful? He has been writing novels at home for 18 years, but his books have never been published. Is he taking any action on his own? He's basically waiting for things to happen, and that's not working. He seems to be looking at various novel submissions, but so far nothing has happened. I've even submitted to publishers on my own. But the busy publishers don't read them. I don't think they are interested in reading it. I think he told me that some publishers have banned him after he brought his work to them so many times. Maybe he doesn't have any talent. If someone doesn't tell him, he probably won't wake up. Because, how long has he been writing? Ken said he has been writing since he was 14 years old, so 26 or 7 years, I guess. He wrote about his thoughts when his father passed away, and his homeroom teacher praised him for it. That's why I heard he started writing novels. You and grandmother are terrible. We have to tell him. There are novelists who were first recognized at the age of 70. If you don't give up, you have to believe that one day it will come true. I believe in his talent. No way. It has been 30 years since Ken started writing novels. Finally, good news arrived at our house. It was a fluke. It was my least confident story. It was the first novel I had ever written with a different twist, and I had no idea it would win a special award. What's happened to me for the past 30 years? Instead of being pleased, Ken is becoming more and more distressed. This has been the case since we first met, but he is very difficult to deal with. His anger vectors are slightly off from those of other people. That's how sensitive, nervous, and pure he is. Green Publishing handles a lot of books that are known only to those in the know, so I think it's a good fit for you. But it's not a serial, it's a short story. It's just a one-time relationship. I might have to change my style, you know? I've heard that many people in the entertainment industry hold back from doing work they don't want to do. If you have a problem with that, you must be a great person yourself. Perhaps not liking her words, Ken returned to her room in a foul mood. The next day, the editor, Shelley, came to our house. I'm Shelley, and I'll be in charge of Ken from today. I look forward to working with you. She is a bright, brisk, and pleasant young woman. Ken was in a good mood. Is your wife at home every day? I work on weekdays, but I think my mother-in-law is there every day. My son is a college student and has finished job hunting, so sometimes he just hangs around at home. I try to stay out of the family's way as much as possible. He's not used to this, so I may cause trouble for him. I will try my best to support him. From that day onward, Shelley began to visit our house frequently to help Ken with his writing. Would you like to join us for dinner? Shelley, who had come to pick up Ken's manuscript, was sitting on the sofa in the living room, apparently still waiting. If Ken doesn't give it to me by midnight today, I won't be able to make it in time. Ken's short stories are short, so he has an early deadline. Over dinner, Shelley praised Ken's work from beginning to end. I've become a fan of Ken's. These lines were the same words I said to Ken 22 years ago. Ken's novel was a shock to me, even though he seemed so kind and gentle on the outside. I'm completely taken by Ken's work. I'm impressed with you, Shelley. My wife has never once praised Ken. Harry has never even read any of Ken's novels. Since the son of a novelist is so cold, it must be because of the way his mother raised him. Depending on today's short story, that means there's a possibility of a serialization, right? I'm pushing hard for it. Somehow, my husband has changed since Shelley started working with him. He takes care of his appearance and shaves his beard every morning. The other day he went to a barber for the first time in decades. I used to cut his hair at home, but it was a rare visit to a hair salon. And he's at home in his sweatshirt and chinos. Something must have woken him up. Shelley is young and pretty, so he wants to be seen in a good light. It's gross, and I don't think a 40-plus-year-old man would be taken seriously by a woman in her 20s. And if you were a man, you would be called a sexual harasser. Harry always says harsh things. He must be growing up. Ken is still stuck in the hotel today, mother-in-law? Ken is staying at a hotel for the rest of the week. He is pretending to be a big-name writer. The short story collection was good, but this time it's a petit novel with up to 3 stories, right? What's more, it's only 1 or 2 pages, so why is he pretending to be a great writer and staying at a hotel? Harry, you really do have a sharp tongue, don't you? You are really a talker, Harry. Your father has finally been recognized and made famous. You are not the son of a novelist. This is also the fault of his wife's discipline. Sarah will always refuse to acknowledge Ken, so Harry will think the same way. Harry does not like Ken very much. A father who has never played with him since he was a little boy. A father and son who never had a good conversation. He hated his father, who was clearly different from the fathers of his other friends, especially during his adolescence. Now he has mellowed a lot, I think, from Mother's point of view. You've been slacking on the housework lately. I can't imagine what the future holds for you if all you do is work now that Harry is out of the picture. I'm sorry, we've been short-staffed due to cutbacks. If you get laid off, it will be the end of this house. Don't make the mistake of relying on Ken's earnings. Even now, Ken's earning is almost nothing. Starting with Green Publishing, there have been offers for a book, but Ken seems to be having a hard time writing. If you are a successful writer, you can get a prominent place in bookstores. But an unknown author can only find one book on the shelf. No one will find it or pick it up. I'll vacuum while Ken is gone. When Ken was at home, there was no way she could make a sound of the vacuum cleaner. Even the sound of the washing machine spinning is too much for Ken, and that noisy vacuum cleaner is a terrible bomb. Ken's writing room is a country-style room, and the writing desk has not changed. The sight of Ken sitting cross-legged at her writing desk was a common sight in this household. What's this? Underneath the manuscript paper on the writing desk, there was a notebook that looked like a diary, which Ken has been keeping for a long time. I don't remember Ken keeping a diary for a long time. I had a nasty desire to take a look, so I flipped through the notebook. Oh no! The notebook spelled out sweet words that were so sweet that I felt a sense of sympathetic shame, as if sending them to someone. I had thought on my own that Ken would never be able to write a love story, but apparently not. The subject was clearly Shelley. However, there was nothing sensual about the text, and on the contrary, it was poorly written as he was not used to writing such novels. The only pleasure I have when I am cooped up in a hotel is the room service I get with Shelley. Every time, I am fed up with the small menu, but Shelley always orders a club sandwich. As for me, I always get lost and can't decide what to order. Recently, Shelley-san has started to show her true self, and I am sometimes amazed. My wife is a strong and capable person. She has never once expressed any weakness to me, nor has she ever taken advantage of me. On the other hand, Shelley, perhaps because she is young, spoils me and is selfish. Why are you leaving? She said with a tearful look on her face, so I stayed at the hotel one more night, then 2 more nights, and so on. I get tons of texts, emails, even when I'm home. I'll die if you don't come over right now. You have to reply to my emails 10 times a day. Such selfishness was new to me. In the beginning. Recently, she has become bolder and is pressing me to do it in my room at my house. But I want my writing room to be sacred to me. So when I strongly refuse. Is it okay if I scream out loud now and lie and say I was forced to do it? I wonder what Shelley likes about me, which is also true for my wife. If I were a woman, I would not have chosen her as my first choice. I have no money, no status, no honor. I close the notebook and take a deep breath. I was disappointed to see how ordinary Ken was when it came to love. I was shocked that Ken, who writes like a man so obsessed with his delusional world, could be so ordinary. Then, a little later, my anger started to boil over. It was filthy to have relations with a mistress in this very room. I'm sorry to bother you. Oh, I see your wife is here today. Is something wrong if I'm here? No, I heard you were busy with work. Would you like to have tea time? I got a nice cup of tea. I brewed tea in a teacup and offered cookies along with it. Shelley didn't fidget, and it was again frustrating that she was so imposing. I'm looking forward to Ken's first book. I have a feeling that it will be a masterpiece, since he is so talented. I don't think it will sell well, though. Ken is hurt that his wife would say such a thing. You always act like an onlooker, but I hear that you are the one who has inspired Ken. You are the first fan, aren't you? Aren't you the first now? That's because I want the writers who are assigned to me to write good works. It seems to be more than a relationship between the editor in charge and the writer, doesn't it? I am often suspected, because we are very close. So it's not unusual for the wife to get jealous, so I don't blame you if you think so. Please wait a moment. I forcefully brought Ken in the writing room. This situation would not start without Ken. What's wrong with you, forcing me to bring her here? Ken, you are having an affair with her, right? I never expected it to happen to Ken until now, but... There's no use in deceiving me, I've seen Ken's diary. Ken was dismayed. Ken was upset. Compared to her, Shelley was completely unperturbed. If you found out, it can't be helped. I'm in a serious relationship with him. We have a connection from our previous lives. In a previous life, we had a heart-to-heart. So we are destined to be together in this life. What's so good about an old man who is 10 or 20 years older than you? Is it possible that you like old man? Can you please stop talking about such low-level stuff? I believe that the reason he has not been able to sprout up to now is due in part to his wife's influence. His wife, who is supposed to be closest to him, has not given him any stimulation. A story can't be born in a monotonous daily routine. Ken, is that so? Do you think it's my fault that you couldn't sell? No, I'm not looking for that from Sarah. You are also honest. You were on the verge of giving up, weren't you? You don't need a useless wife anymore, do you? I wouldn't call you useless. Sarah has a stance that she will not interfere with my work. Well, Shelley is my best partner because she knows what's going on in this world. Why don't you make it clear? Why don't you make it clear to her that being with me, and not your wife, is the right thing for me to do in life? Well, I guess that's the way it is. I was too shocked to say anything back. I could not believe that Ken thought that my 22 years with her were meaningless. Why don't you announce that too? But Ken seems to have some guilt, but I don't want him to be merciful now. If Ken wants to throw me away, I'd rather be abused for throwing me away. Sarah, actually, I'm having a child. It looks like I'm going to be a father again at my age. You've never even held Harry in your arms. You haven't done a single fatherly thing, but you think you can do it with Shelley's child? As Shelley told me, I need to broaden my horizons and experience more things. That is not Ken. Ken is the one who constructs stories within your own worldview. If you can change your opinion so easily just because Shelley gives you advice, why don't you quit being a writer? You have no talent. I tried to suppress the urge to cry out loud, and threw out the one word I should not have said. As you wish, I'll divorce you. Nancy was completely fooled by Shelley's performance and was overjoyed that Shelley was coming to marry her. Then Ken and I divorced. At this juncture, the offer of my overseas transfer came up, and I immediately jumped at the chance. Sarah was going to move out. Do as you please. The day of the move came, and Nancy was impatient for me to get started. I'll be gone in 3 hours. Ken, Shelley, and Nancy still did not know what that meant. I got in a cab to catch my flight after the movers had taken my personal belongings away. I really wanted to see it through to the end, but I left the rest to Harry. This is what Harry told me afterwards, 3 hours later. What? This situation? A large family had moved into our house. They have 5 children. And they are all boys. Both Ken and Nancy were stunned. Hey, what's going on? Let's call the police, we have a family member we don't know. Oh, wait a minute. I have a message from my mother. I'll read it. The house is in my name, I made the down payment of $100,000, and I have been paying the loan for 22 years. I have now finished paying it off. I thought about selling it due to an overseas transfer, but I thought it would be sad to lose my family home to Harry. I have decided to rent out my house, complete with appliances and furniture, for a limited period of 3 years. I will be able to earn income from rent. I will come back to this house in 3 years. Therefore, Ken, mother-in-law, Shelley has no right to live in this house. Please leave quickly. If you do not comply, I have asked my lawyer to take appropriate measures. I am sure that the new occupants of the house, a large family, are occupying the house now. There are 5 boys in the house, and they must be very noisy and mischievous. Ken, can you write in such noise? You can't do it, can you, mother-in-law? Harry was forbidden to make noise at home, and if he made even the slightest noise, he was scolded by his mother-in-law. That is why Harry used to walk on his toes. That is how nervously he lived his life, paying attention to the adults. Well, if Ken wins an award, she can live in a bigger house, right? With Shelley, who might crush Ken's talent, you should produce a good home and good works. But I think even the child Shelley will give birth to will make a fuss, right? My works can only be born in silence, which Ken has always used as an excuse. That's why I granted your wish for a writing room, so why haven't you produced any good works in 22 years? Maybe you don't have any talent. Then, I hope to see your books in bookstores. Though I definitely won't buy it. So she said. Dad, Grandma, and Shelley, you should give it up. At this moment, all 3 of them came to their senses and fell to their knees at the same time. After this, Ken and Nancy had no choice but to move into Shelley's one-room apartment. How's work? How is it going? Well, it's tough. I now know how great my mother is. Have you gotten used to living on your own? I've got some big news. Dad, I think Shelley ran away. After Mom went abroad, they lived in a 2DK apartment house with kids, huddled together, you know? Naturally, he couldn't write anymore. He was writing at an internet cafe, but he couldn't write at all. Then he got fed up with Shelley and left them. Left her child behind? I can't believe it. I guess it wasn't the married life she dreamed of. Ideal and reality are different. I think everyone knew this would happen. Not only that, in the end, there was no one left to earn money, right? So, Grandma, as a matter of fact, borrowed money from consumer credit companies. Now she's being chased by debt collectors. I'm under my mother's surname, so the debt collectors didn't come directly to me. Grandma started crying and asking me to lend her money, saying that she deserved it as a son. As a result, my father and Grandma ran away in the night. I felt relieved. I felt like I was finally liberated. I am glad I had Harry. I had no idea that he would become such a strong and dependable person. Living abroad was comfortable. I was so contented that I wondered if it was okay for me to live a comfortable life. I was so satisfied with my life.